The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky valley as the Veltar tribe gathered in their sacred circle. Yuri knelt in the center, her hands bound with rough rope that cut into her pale blue skin. Her large amber eyes stared straight ahead, refusing to show the fear that clawed at her chest like a hungry beast. Elder Tejo stood before her, his weathered face hard as stone. The ceremonial burning rod glowed red-hot in his gnarled hands. Behind him, the entire tribe watched in silence. Yuri could see her childhood friend Bora in the crowd, tears streaming down her face, but even Bora dared not speak against the judgment. Yuri of the Eastern Caves. Tejo's voice boomed across the gathering. You have brought shame upon our people. You have shown the cursed gift that marks you as touched by the metal spirits. Yuri's mind raced back to 3 days ago. The hunting party had been tracking a herd of grazing beasts near the forbidden zones where old machinery lay buried. She had felt it first, that strange tingling in her skull that always came when metal things were near. But this time it was different, stronger, more urgent. The feeling had grown so intense that she could barely think. Without meaning to, she had grabbed the hunt leader's arm and pointed toward a cluster of rocks. There, she had whispered. Something watches us from there. The hunters had laughed at first. The rocks looked empty, just another pile of stone in the endless wilderness. But Yuri's electromagnetic sense screamed danger. She could feel the electronic heartbeat of hidden devices, the subtle hum of active surveillance equipment buried in the stone. "Please," she had begged, "we must go another way. The metal spirits see us." That was her mistake, speaking of the curse openly. Admitting what she could sense. The hunt leader, a proud warrior named Jasik, had grown angry at her interruption. To prove her wrong, he had marched straight toward the rocks. The hidden sensors had activated instantly, rising from concealment like metal serpents. Ancient security drones, left behind by some long-dead civilization, had awakened and attacked. Only Yuri's warning had saved them. Her ability to sense the electromagnetic fields had given them just enough time to retreat before the automated weapons could lock onto their position. But instead of gratitude, the tribe had felt only horror. Yuri possessed the forbidden sense, the curse that their ancestors had feared above all others. Now she paid the price for saving their lives. "The metal spirits have marked you," Tejo continued, raising the burning rod higher. "They whisper their poison in your mind. They make you see things that should remain hidden. This curse cannot be allowed to spread." Yuri finally spoke, her voice steady despite the terror in her heart. "I saved our hunters. I warned them of danger. How is this evil?" "Because you hear the voice of technology," spat another elder, an ancient female named Malsoon. "Our people have survived for 1,000 generations by avoiding the metal poison. We live as nature intended. We hunt with spear and bow. We build with stone and wood. We do not corrupt ourselves with the machine curse. But the machines are already here," Yuri protested. "They have always been here, sleeping in the forbidden zones. I did not create them. I only sense them." "Silence," Tejo commanded. He stepped closer, the heat from the burning rod making Yuri's face flush. "The law is clear. Those who carry the metal curse must be marked and cast out, lest they bring ruin upon us all." Yuri looked desperately around the circle of faces. These were the people who had raised her after her parents died in a rock slide. The same children she had played with, the same adults who had taught her to hunt and gather. But now they stared at her with fear and disgust, as if she had become something monstrous. Only Bora met her eyes, and Yuri could see the pain there. Her oldest friend wanted to help, but knew that speaking out would only result in her own punishment. "I could help you," Yuri said, one last attempt to make them understand. "My curse, as you call it, could protect the tribe. I could sense dangers before they strike. I could warn you of the metal spirits that sleep in the deep places. That is exactly why you must go, Teho replied. You would make us dependent on the metal curse. You would corrupt our children by teaching them to rely on unnatural senses. You would turn us into something we are not. The elder pressed the burning rod against Yuri's forehead. The pain was beyond description, a white-hot agony that seemed to set her entire skull on fire. The smell of burning flesh filled the air as the sacred mark was burned into her skin. The mark that would identify her as an exile wherever she went. Yuri bit down on her tongue to keep from screaming, tasting blood. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. When it was finished, Teho stepped back. By the ancient laws, you are no longer Veltar. You are nameless and tribeless. You will take only what you can carry and leave this place before the sun reaches its peak. If you return, you will be killed on sight. The ropes were cut from her wrists. Yuri stood slowly, fighting dizziness from the pain in her forehead. Someone, she thought it was Bora's mother, threw a small pack at her feet. It contained basic survival gear, a water skin, dried meat for perhaps 3 days, and a simple knife. Bora broke from the crowd and rushed forward. Yuri, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Stay back, Teho warned. She is exile now. To aid her is to share her curse. Bora stopped but whispered urgently. Go to the southern cliffs. There is a water spring there. And I heard stories of an outsider who trades near the great rocks. Maybe. Enough. Teho's voice cut through Bora's words. Return to your place. Yuri picked up the pack and slung it over her shoulder. The burned mark on her forehead throbbed with each heartbeat. She looked one last time at the only home she had ever known, at the faces of people who no longer considered her one of them. I saved your hunters, she said quietly. Remember that when the metal spirits wake again, and there is no one left who can hear their approach. She turned and walked away from the tribe, toward the harsh wilderness that would now be her only companion. Behind her, she could hear Bora weeping, but no one else made a sound. As Yuri climbed the rocky slope that led away from the valley, her electromagnetic sense picked up a new signal. Far to the south, near the edge of the Forbidden Zone, something hummed with electronic life, something different from the ancient sleeping machinery that dotted the landscape. This signal felt newer, more complex, almost alive. For the first time since her exile began, Yuri felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps there was somewhere in this hostile world where her curse might be seen as something other than an abomination. She adjusted her pack and began walking toward the strange signal, toward whatever waited for her in the unknown wilderness ahead. 3 days under the burning sun had turned Yuri into a walking skeleton. Her blue skin had darkened to a sickly purple color, and her lips were cracked and bleeding. The small water skin in her pack had run dry on the 2nd day, and the dried meat felt like sand in her parched mouth. The electromagnetic signal that had drawn her south grew stronger with each painful step. It pulsed in her mind like a second heartbeat, complex and layered in ways she had never experienced before. This was not the simple hum of sleeping ancient machines or the harsh buzz of security drones. This signal felt almost like music, if music could be made of electricity and data streams. Yuri stumbled over a loose rock and fell to her knees. The burned mark on her forehead blazed with pain as sweat dripped into the wound. She tried to stand, but her legs would not obey. The world spun around her in dizzy circles. Through her fading vision, she saw it, a structure unlike anything the Veltar had ever built. It rose from the rocky ground like a metal flower, all smooth curves and gleaming surfaces. Strange lights blinked along its walls in patterns that made her electromagnetic sense tingle with recognition. This was the source of the complex signal. Yuri crawled forward on her hands and knees. The structure was some kind of dwelling, she realized. Doors and windows were arranged in a way that suggested someone lived here. But who would choose to surround themselves with so much metal and technology? A new sound reached her ears. Footsteps, heavy boots on metal flooring. Yuri looked up to see a figure emerging from the strange building. The creature was tall and broad, covered in some kind of protective clothing that looked like armor but moved like fabric. Its face was hidden behind a transparent barrier that reflected the sunlight. In its hands was a device that hummed with electronic energy. Yuri had never seen anything like this being before. It walked on two legs like a Veltar, but was much larger and more heavily built. Its movements were careful and controlled, like a hunter who expected danger at any moment. The creature stopped when it saw her collapsed form. It spoke in a language she did not understand, the words coming through some kind of voice modifier that made them sound hollow and metallic. "Sang-Woo, run a bioscan on the local," the creature said, though Yuri could not grasp the meaning. "She looks like she's dying of dehydration," a new voice answered, seeming to come from the air itself. "Bio readings confirm severe dehydration and malnutrition, Hajin. The subject appears to be of the local Veltar species based on skin pigmentation and bone structure. I am detecting unusual electromagnetic activity in her brain patterns." Hajin. That must be the creature's name. Yuri tried to speak, but only a weak croak came from her throat. She raised one trembling hand toward the being called Hajin, hoping he would understand her need for help. Hajin knelt beside her and removed the transparent barrier from his face. Yuri gasped in surprise. Beneath the protective gear was a face that looked almost like her own, but different. The skin was darker, more brown than blue, and the features were heavier and more angular. But the eyes held intelligence and something she had not expected to see in a creature of metal and machines. Kindness. "Easy there," Hajin said softly, his unmodified voice much warmer than it had sounded through the device. "I'm going to help. You, okay. Can you understand me at all?" Yuri shook her head weakly. The words were gibberish to her, but the tone was gentle. This metal creature meant her no harm. Hajin scooped her up in his arms as easily as if she weighed nothing at all. Yuri was amazed by his strength. Even the strongest Veltar warriors would have struggled to carry a full-grown adult, but Hajin lifted her without any sign of effort. He carried her into his metal dwelling, and Yuri's senses were immediately overwhelmed. The electromagnetic signals here were so complex and layered that they made her head spin even worse than her dehydration. Lights blinked everywhere in patterns she could not decode. Strange humming sounds filled the air. The very walls seemed alive with electronic energy, but somehow none of it felt threatening. The signals were ordered and purposeful, like the difference between a raging storm and a gentle rain. This technology was not sleeping or hostile like the ancient machines in the forbidden zones. It was awake and controlled and somehow peaceful. Hajin placed her on something soft and comfortable. Yuri had never felt anything like it. The Veltar slept on woven mats and used animal furs for warmth, but this surface seemed to adjust itself to support her body perfectly. "Sang-Woo, start the medical protocols," Hajin said, "and see if you can get the universal translator working on her language. I think this might be one of the exiled ones." The voice in the air responded again. "Beginning medical treatment now, Hajin. I should warn you that interfering with local tribal politics could complicate our trading relationships with the Veltar settlements. Since when do we let politics override basic human decency?" Hajin replied as he attached strange devices to Yuri's arms. "She's dying. We help her. Everything else comes after." Yuri felt cool liquid flowing into her body through tubes connected to the devices. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Water, cleaner and purer than anything she had ever tasted, spread through her system like magic. Her parched throat began to feel normal again, and the dizziness started to fade. As her body recovered, Yuri became more aware of her surroundings. The chamber she was in contained wonders beyond imagination. walls that glowed with soft light, surfaces that showed moving pictures of distant places, devices that hummed and blinked with purposes she could not guess. And in the center of it all, watching over her with concerned eyes, was Ha-Jin. He was human, she realized, though she had never heard that word before. The stories told by traveling. Merchants sometimes mentioned strange beings from the distant stars, creatures who built machines that could fly between worlds. But Yuri had always thought these were just tales to entertain children. Now she was being cared for by one of these legendary star travelers. Ha-Jin spoke again, and this time a device near her head translated his words into her own language. The translation was rough and mechanical, but she could understand the meaning. Name is Ha-Jin. You are safe here. I will help you recover strength. Can you tell me your name? Yuri tried to speak and found her voice working again. Yuri, she whispered. I am. I was Veltar. Now I am nothing. Ha-Jin's expression softened with understanding. Exile, he said, and the translator rendered it perfectly. I know something about that. You are not nothing, Yuri. You are a person who needs help, and I am a person who can provide it. For the first time since her banishment, Yuri felt tears of relief rather than pain. This strange creature from the stars, this master of metal and machines, was offering her something her own people had denied. Acceptance. Why, she managed to ask. Why help me? I am cursed. I bring danger to those around me. Ha-Jin smiled, and Yuri was struck by how the expression transformed his face. Maybe, he said. But I have learned that the most dangerous people are often the ones most worth knowing. Rest now. We can talk more when you are stronger. As Yuri drifted into the first peaceful sleep she had known since her exile, she could feel the complex, electromagnetic patterns of Ha-Jin's home settling into rhythms around her. For the first time in her life, her strange abilities did not feel like a curse. They felt like coming home. 2 weeks had passed since Ha-Jin found Yuri collapsed outside his outpost. The young Veltar woman had recovered her physical strength, but her mind remained hungry for knowledge about the strange world of technology that surrounded her. Each morning, Yuri would wake on the soft, sleeping surface Ha-Jin called a bed and spend hours exploring the wonders of his home. The walls showed pictures of distant worlds where Ha-Jin had traveled. Water flowed from metal tubes whenever she needed it, always clean and perfect. Food appeared from devices that could create any taste she desired. But what fascinated her most was how her electromagnetic abilities worked with Ha-Jin's machines. Instead of the chaotic noise she felt from ancient technology, these devices sang to her in organized patterns. She could sense when systems needed maintenance before warning lights appeared. She could feel power flowing through circuits like water through rivers. Ha-Jin watched her discoveries with growing amazement. Sang-woo, he said one morning as Yuri correctly predicted that the atmospheric processor needed a filter change. Have you ever seen anything like this? Her neural electromagnetic sensitivity is beyond anything in our databases, the AI replied through speakers built into the walls. She appears to have evolved a natural interface with electronic systems. The military applications alone would be extraordinary. Yuri looked up from the device she was examining. The universal translator had improved greatly over the past weeks, allowing for complex conversations. Military? She asked. You were a warrior, Ha-Jin. Ha-Jin's expression grew distant. Once, a long time ago, I served with a unit called the Terran Peacekeepers. We were sent to settle disputes between alien species, to protect colonies from raiders, to keep the peace on frontier worlds. What happened? Yuri asked gently. She had learned to read the sadness that crossed Ha-Jin's face when he spoke of his past. We were betrayed, Ha-Jin said simply. My commanding officer, a woman named So Young, was ordered to abandon a colony, world to save resources for a more strategically important system. 50,000 civilians would die if we left. So Young refused the order. Yuri sat down beside him on the metal bench he used for meals. She chose to protect the innocent ones. Yes, and for that choice, the military branded her a traitor. They sent ships to arrest us all. So Young died fighting to give the rest of us time to escape with the colonists. Hajin's hands clenched into fists. I lost everything that day. My career, my purpose, my faith in the people I had sworn to serve. Like me, Yuri said softly. Cast out by those who should have protected us. Hajin nodded. That's why I could not leave you to die in the desert. I know what it feels like to be abandoned by your own people. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent beeping from the outpost's sensors. Sang-woo's voice filled the chamber with mechanical tension. Hajin, I am detecting an approaching vehicle. Single occupant, traveling fast, heading directly for our position. Yuri felt it too, a familiar electromagnetic signature that made her heart race with fear and hope. I know this pattern, she whispered. It is Wu Jin. Who is Wu Jin? Hajin asked, already moving toward his weapons locker. A warrior from my tribe. He asked my father for permission to court me before the exile. Yuri's enhanced senses picked up more details from the approaching vehicle. Hajin, something is wrong. He carries devices I do not recognize, hidden ones. Hajin pulled on his protective armor and checked his weapons. Hidden devices usually mean bad intentions. Can you tell what kind? Yuri closed her eyes and focused on the electromagnetic patterns she could sense. Communication equipment. Very powerful. And something else. Something small, but active. It feels like... Like what? Like the tracking devices the ancient security systems used to mark targets. Hajin's expression hardened. He's not here to help you. He's here to gather information and probably to mark our location for someone else. The vehicle stopped outside the outpost, and moments later they heard knocking on the main door. Hajin activated the external speaker system. That's close enough, friend. State your business. A voice answered in the Veltar language, which Sang-woo translated instantly. I seek the exile Yuri. I bring word from her tribe. Send him away, Yuri whispered. If he reports back to Elder Taeho... No, Hajin said firmly. Running and hiding won't solve this. Let's find out what game he's playing. Hajin opened the door but kept his weapon ready. Wu Jin stood outside, tall and muscular in the way of Veltar warriors. His skin was the same pale blue as Yuri's, but his eyes held a hardness that spoke of recent violence. Yuri, Wu Jin said, speaking directly to her. You look well. The metal spirits have not consumed you as the elders feared they would. What do you want, Wu Jin? Yuri replied, staying close to Hajin's side. I bring terrible news. The Skardan scavengers have begun raiding our settlements. They take our young ones as slaves and steal whatever they can carry. The elders believe your exile has brought this curse upon us. Yuri felt her heart sink. How many have been taken? 7 younglings from 3 different hunting parties. Among them, Wu Jin paused, his voice becoming gentle. Among them was Da-Yun, Bora's little sister. Yuri gasped and stumbled backward. Da-Yun was barely past her naming ceremony, too young to defend herself against raiders. And Bora, her dearest friend, must be going mad with grief and fear. The elders sent me to offer you a choice, Wu Jin continued. Return to the tribe, and use your curse to help us track the scavengers. If you succeed in bringing back our children, your exile will be lifted. Hajin stepped forward. And if she refuses... Wu Jin's hand moved toward the weapon at his belt. Then she will be considered responsible for every death that follows. Yuri's electromagnetic senses screamed a warning. The hidden devices Wu Jin carried were broadcasting their location to someone far away. But there was something else, something that made her blood run cold. "Ha Jin," she whispered urgently. "The tracker he carries, it's not just marking us. It's calling to something. Something big and dangerous is coming this way." Ha Jin's eyes narrowed. "How long do we have?" Yuri concentrated on the signal patterns flooding her enhanced senses. "Not long. Perhaps an hour, maybe less." "Wu Jin," Ha Jin said calmly. "I think you should leave now." The Veltar warrior smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I think not human. You see, the Skardan have offered a great reward for advanced technology. Your outpost contains more wealth than my tribe sees in 10 years. When Hyun-Soo arrives with his raiders, I will be richly rewarded for delivering such a prize." "You would betray your own people for gold?" Yuri asked, horrified. "I would save my people by giving the scavengers what they want," Wu Jin replied. "Better they raid this metal lover than attack our settlements." Ha Jin's weapon appeared in his hand so quickly that Wu Jin barely had time to react. "Bad choice," the human said quietly. "You just threatened the wrong person on the wrong day." "Ha Jin, wait," Yuri said, placing a hand on his arm. "If Hyun-Soo is coming here, that means he's not attacking the Veltar settlements. The children, they might still be alive." Ha Jin looked at her with understanding. "You want to save them?" "I have to try. Dayun is just a child, and Bora, I cannot abandon her when she needs help. Even though your tribe cast you out, even though they blame you for bringing this trouble." Yuri nodded firmly. "They are still my people, and you taught me that doing what is right matters more than what is safe." Ha Jin smiled grimly and turned back to Wu Jin. "Looks like you get to live a little longer, warrior, but you're going to help us stop the scavengers, whether you want to or not." As alarms began sounding from the outpost's defensive systems, Yuri felt the electromagnetic signatures of approaching vehicles filling the horizon. Hyun-Soo and his raiders were coming, drawn by Wu Jin's betrayal, but they would find more than an easy target waiting for them. The first wave of attackers appeared on the horizon just as the sun reached its highest point. Yuri's electromagnetic senses picked up their approach long before Ha Jin's sensors could detect them. 50 vehicles spread across the desert like a pack of hunting beasts, their crude engines belching smoke and their weapons crackling with stolen energy. "Sang-Woo, activate all defensive systems," Ha Jin commanded as he sealed Wu Jin in the outpost's holding cell. "Full combat protocols." "Defensive systems online," the AI responded. "I count 47 vehicles approaching from multiple directions. This is a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm our position through sheer numbers." Yuri studied the Ye's energy patterns flowing from the attacking force. "Ha Jin, they have split into 2 groups. The larger force heads toward the Veltar settlement, but a smaller group comes here. They plan to strike both targets at once." "Smart tactics," Ha Jin admitted grimly. "Divide our attention and resources. How many are coming our way?" 12 vehicles, perhaps 30 warriors." Yuri paused, her enhanced senses picking up more details. "They carry captured Veltar weapons along with their own crude technology. And Ha Jin, I can sense the electromagnetic signatures of the missing children. They are with the main force." Ha Jin's jaw tightened. "How many children?" 7, as Wu Jin said. "They are alive but frightened. Their life signs are weak from poor treatment." "Then we have 2 missions," Ha Jin said, checking his weapons one final time. "Stop the assault on this outpost, then rescue those kids before the main force reaches the Veltar settlement." "How can 2 people fight so many?" Yuri asked, though she was already moving toward the weapon Ha Jin had been teaching her to use. "Superior. Technology, better tactics, and one secret weapon they don't know about," Ha Jin replied with a fierce grin. "You!" The first attackers reached the outpost's perimeter just as Ha Jin finished setting up his defensive positions. Yuri crouched beside him behind a barrier of reinforced metal, her heart pounding but her mind focused on the electromagnetic patterns surrounding them. "I can feel their weapons charging," she whispered. "3 vehicles on the left are preparing to fire, 2 more coming around the right side." "Guide my shots," Ha-Jin said, raising his advanced rifle. "Tell me where they are before they can target us." Yuri closed her eyes and let her abilities extend outward like invisible fingers. The crude vehicles of the Skardan raiders lit up, in her mind like bright flames, their electronic systems crude but powerful. She could sense the exact moment when weapons reached full charge, could predict where each vehicle would move based on the patterns of their engine signatures. Left side, the lead vehicle. Fire in 3, 2, 1. Now. Ha-Jin's shot struck the vehicle's power core with perfect precision. The raider craft exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the desert for miles around. The other attackers scattered, suddenly realizing they faced more than just another easy target. "Right side, behind the large rock. They are trying to flank us," Yuri called out, her senses tracking every movement. 2 vehicles, moving fast." Ha-Jin pivoted and fired twice in rapid succession. Both vehicles erupted in flames before their drivers could react. The electromagnetic feedback from the explosions made Yuri wince, but she forced herself to concentrate on the remaining threats. "Ha-Jin, the largest vehicle is hanging back. The leader wants to see our capabilities before committing to direct assault. Then let's give him a show he won't forget." Ha-Jin activated a device Yuri had never seen before. Suddenly, the air around the outpost shimmered with energy barriers that deflected the raiders' crude weapons like rain bouncing off stone. Return fire from concealed automatic turrets turned 3 more vehicles into burning wrecks. The remaining Skardan attackers retreated beyond the range of Ha-Jin's defenses, but Yuri could sense their confusion and fear. They had expected an easy victory against a single human, not a fortified position with military-grade equipment. "They're regrouping," Yuri reported. "The leader is calling for reinforcements from the main force." "How long before help arrives?" Ha-Jin asked. Yuri focused on the distant electromagnetic signatures. "Perhaps 20 minutes. But Ha-Jin, if warriors leave the main force to help here, the children will be left with fewer guards." "That's what I was hoping for." Ha-Jin began packing supplies into a mobile kit. "We're not staying here to fight. A prolonged battle. We're going after those kids while their captors are distracted. But the remaining attackers will find an empty outpost protected by automated defenses. Sang-Woo can handle things here while we're gone." The AI's voice carried a note of concern. "Ha-Jin, leaving the outpost unguarded is extremely risky. If they breach the defenses, they won't," Ha-Jin said confidently, "because Yuri is going to help us hit them where they don't expect it." Yuri felt a chill of understanding. "You want to attack the main force directly?" "Exactly. While they're focused on reaching the Veltar settlement, we'll strike their rear, guard, and free the children. Then we'll warn the tribe and help them prepare defenses." "This is madness, Ha-Jin. There are too many of them." Ha-Jin shouldered his pack and checked his weapons one final time. "Maybe, but those children don't have. Time for us to come up with a safer plan. Every minute we delay means more suffering for them." Yuri thought of little Da-Yun, Bo-Ra's sister, trapped and terrified among brutal strangers. The child had always been kind to Yuri, even after some adults began whispering about her strange abilities. She could not abandon Da-Yun to slavery. Or worse, "I will help you," Yuri said firmly. "But how do we reach them without being detected?" "We don't travel by ground," Ha-Jin replied, leading her toward a section of the outpost she had never seen before. "We fly." He activated a control panel, and part of the outpost's floor slid away to reveal a sleek aircraft unlike anything Yuri had ever imagined. It was smaller than the raiders' crude vehicles, but seemed to radiate power and speed from every smooth curve. "This is a military scout ship," Ha-Jin explained as they climbed aboard. Fast, quiet, and equipped with stealth systems that will make us invisible to their sensors. Yuri strapped herself into the passenger seat, her electromagnetic senses immediately detecting the incredible complexity of the aircraft's systems. The ship felt alive with electronic intelligence, every component working in perfect harmony. "Are you ready for this?" Ha-Jin asked, as the engines came online with a whisper of power. Yuri nodded, though her heart hammered with fear and excitement. "The children need us. That is all that matters." The scout ship lifted off silently and accelerated toward the main Skardan force. Through the transparent canopy, Yuri could see the raiders' vehicles spread across the desert like a dark stain. Somewhere among them, 7 innocent children waited for rescue. As they flew toward almost certain death, Yuri realized that for the first time since her exile, she felt truly alive. Her abilities were not a curse to be hidden, but a gift that could save lives. And beside her sat a human warrior who had chosen to risk everything for people he had never met. "Ha-Jin," she said softly. "Yes. Thank you. For everything." Ha-Jin smiled as he guided the ship toward their target. "Thank me after we get those kids back safe. The real fight is just beginning." Below them, the electromagnetic signatures of the Skardan force grew larger and more complex. Yuri could sense the children's life signs, weak but still present, among the chaos of raiders and weapons. Soon, very soon, it would be time to show these scavengers what happened when they threatened the innocent. The Skardan raiding force had positioned itself in a defensive circle around the captured Veltar children. Yuri could sense the 7 young prisoners huddled together in a crude cage at the center of the camp, their electromagnetic life signs flickering with fear and exhaustion. Ha-Jin piloted the stealth ship to a landing position behind a cluster of rocks, well beyond the raiders' sensor range. Through her enhanced abilities, Yuri counted 35 Skardan warriors, armed with stolen weapons and riding in vehicles cobbled together from salvaged parts. "The children are in the center," Yuri whispered as they prepared their equipment. "But Ha-Jin, their leader Hyun-Soo has placed guards with explosive devices near the cage. If we attack directly, the kids get hurt," Ha-Jin finished grimly. "Then we don't attack directly, we get creative." Ha-Jin activated a communication device and spoke to the AI back at his outpost. "Sang-woo, I need you to create a distraction. Send one of our maintenance drones toward the Veltar settlement, but make it obvious and clumsy. I want the Skardan to think it's a scouting probe." "Understood, Ha-Jin." Launching diversion in 30 seconds, Yuri watched through her electromagnetic senses as a small drone lifted off from the distant outpost and flew noisily toward the Veltar Valley. The device deliberately broadcasted its location, practically screaming for attention. "There," Yuri said as the raiders' sensors picked up the drone. "Half their warriors are moving to intercept it. The camp is less defended now." "Good. But we still have the explosives problem. Can you disable them from here?" Yuri focused her abilities on the electromagnetic patterns around the prison cage. The explosive devices were crude but effective, connected to triggers that would activate if the cage was opened or if the guards released them manually. "I can overload their circuits," she said slowly, "but it will require me to get much closer. And Ha-Jin, using my abilities that strongly will be like lighting a signal fire. Every electronic device in the area will sense it." "How close?" "Perhaps 50 meters. No more." Ha-Jin studied the camp layout through his scope. 50 meters puts you right in the middle of their patrol routes. You'll be exposed. Then you must keep their attention elsewhere," Yuri replied, checking the weapon he had taught her to use. "Can you do that?" Ha-Jin's expression was grim but determined. "I can try. But Yuri, if this goes wrong—" "It will not go wrong," she said with more confidence than she felt. "You taught me that doing what is right matters more than what is safe. Those children need us. They moved out under cover of the rocky terrain, using the confusion created by Sang-woo's distraction drone to reach the edge of the Skardon camp. Yuri could hear the children crying softly in their cage, could sense their terror and despair. Among them was Da-un, Bora's little sister, barely 8 years old and trembling with fear. The sight filled Yuri with a cold rage that surprised her with its intensity. "Remember the plan," Hajin whispered as they reached their final positions. "I start the fireworks, you disable the explosives, then we grab the kids and run for the ship. What about the remaining raiders?" "I'll handle them, you focus on the children." Hajin disappeared into the rocks, moving with the silent grace of a trained warrior. Yuri waited, counting heartbeats, until his attack began. The first explosion lit up the desert like a miniature sun. Hajin's advanced weapons tore through the Skardon vehicles with devastating efficiency, turning their crude armor into twisted metal. The raiders scrambled for cover, shouting orders and curses in their harsh language. Yuri used the chaos to sprint toward the prison cage. Her electromagnetic senses guided her through the camp, helping her avoid the panicked warriors, who ran in all directions. 50 meters felt like 50 kilometers, but she reached the cage without being spotted. The explosive devices attached to the prison bars hummed with deadly energy. Yuri placed her hands against the metal and focused every bit of her ability into overloading their circuits. The electromagnetic feedback was incredible, like trying to drink from a waterfall, but she forced herself to concentrate. Sparks flew from the devices as their circuits fried. One by one, the explosives went dead, their electromagnetic signatures fading to nothing. "Da-un," Yuri called softly to the children. "I am here to take you home." The little girl looked up with eyes wide with shock and hope. "Yuri, but you are exiled. The elders said—" "The elders were wrong about many things," Yuri replied as she tore the cage door open with her bare hands. "Can you run?" "Yes," Da-un whispered. "Then we run now." Yuri gathered the 7 children around her, the oldest barely 12 years old, the youngest only 6. They were weak from poor treatment and terrified by the battle raging around them, but they clung to her with desperate trust. "Stay close to me," Yuri commanded. "I will get you to safety." They had taken only a few steps when a massive figure stepped out of the smoke and chaos. Hyun-soo, leader of the Skardon raiders, stood before them with a weapon that crackled with deadly energy. He was huge even by Skardon standards, his body covered in scars and crude mechanical implants that enhanced his strength. His eyes glowed with artificial light, and his voice was distorted by vocal modifications that made it sound like grinding metal. "The cursed one," he growled in broken Veltar. "You bring the metal lover to attack my camp. You steal my valuable prizes." "These children belong with their families," Yuri replied, pushing the younglings behind her. "Not in cages like animals." Hyun-soo laughed, a sound like breaking machinery. "All weak species belong in cages. Veltar, human, it makes no difference. You exist to serve the strong." He raised his weapon, but Yuri was already moving. Her electromagnetic abilities screamed a warning as the device charged to fire. She dove sideways, pulling Da-un with her as superheated energy seared the air where they had been standing. "Run!" Yuri shouted to the other children. "Get to the rocks and hide!" The younglings scattered like frightened birds, but Hyun-soo was already charging his weapon for another shot. Yuri knew she could not dodge forever, not while protecting 7 children. That was when Ha-jin appeared behind the Skardon leader like an avenging spirit. The human warrior moved with deadly precision, his advanced weapons cutting through Hyun-soo's crude armor like paper. But the raider leader was stronger than he looked, enhanced by his mechanical implants, and he turned to grapple with Ha-jin in brutal close combat. Yuri gathered the children and ran for their extraction point, but she could hear the sounds of fighting behind her. Ha-jin was skilled, but Hyun-soo had the advantage of size and artificial strength. She faced an impossible choice: save the children or help Ha-Jin. Then she remembered something Ha-Jin had taught her during their weeks. Together, superior technology and better tactics could overcome any numerical disadvantage. "Children, stay here and do not move," Yuri commanded as she reached the rocks. "I will be back for you." She turned and ran back toward the battle, her electromagnetic senses guiding her to exactly where she needed to be. Ha-Jin and Hyun-Soo were locked in deadly combat, the humans' speed and skill barely offsetting the raiders' enhanced strength. Yuri focused all her ability on the electromagnetic patterns around Hyun-Soo's mechanical implants. The devices were crude and poorly shielded, vulnerable to the kind of focused overload she had used on the explosives. She poured every bit of power she possessed into disrupting the raider leader's enhancements. Sparks flew from his implants as their circuits fried. The artificial lights in his eyes went dark. His enhanced strength failed him at the worst possible moment. Ha-Jin did not waste the opportunity. His final shot ended Hyun-Soo's threat forever. "The children," Ha-Jin gasped, breathing hard from the fight. "Safe," Yuri replied. "All 7 of them." Around them, the remaining Skardon raiders were fleeing into the desert, their leader dead and their vehicles destroyed. The battle was over, but as Yuri looked toward the distant Veltar settlement, she knew the real challenge was just beginning. How would her people react when their exiled outcast returned with their missing children? The Veltar settlement appeared unchanged from the air, but Yuri's electromagnetic senses detected the signs of hasty preparation for battle. Warriors had positioned themselves behind defensive barriers, and the elders had moved the most vulnerable, tribe members, to the protected caves in the hillside. Ha-Jin landed his scout ship in the same clearing where Yuri had been exiled just weeks before. The 7 rescued children pressed against the windows, calling out to their families in voices filled with joy and relief. "Da-Yoon!" Bora screamed as she ran from the crowd that had gathered to watch the strange aircraft. "My sister, my precious sister." The reunion was everything Yuri had hoped for. Bora swept her little sister into her arms, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. The other children were claimed by equally emotional parents and siblings, the whole tribe celebrating the return of their lost younglings. But when the initial joy faded, all eyes turned to Yuri. She stood beside Ha-Jin's ship, the burn scar on her forehead marking her clearly as an exile. The same people who had cast her out now stared in confusion and uncertainty. Elder Taeho approached slowly, his weathered face showing the internal struggle between tribal law and obvious gratitude. "Yuri," he said formally, "you were banished from this place. Why have you returned?" "To bring home your children," Yuri replied simply, "and to warn you that the Skardan threat is not finished. Hyun-Soo is dead, but his followers still roam the desert. They will return with greater numbers." A younger warrior named Jae-min stepped forward. "Is it true that you fought alongside the human? That you helped destroy the raiders?" "Yes," Yuri said. "My curse, as you call it, allowed me to disable their weapons and locate the children. Ha-Jin provided the strength and skill to rescue them." Elder Taeho looked troubled. "The law is clear. Exiles cannot return, even if they perform great deeds." "Then, perhaps the law needs to change," said a voice from the crowd. Everyone turned to see Hye-Jin, a young female warrior known for her progressive ideas. She had always been respectful to the elders, but now she spoke with bold conviction. "Yuri saved our children using the very abilities we condemned her for," Hye-Jin continued. "She risked her life for people who had cast her out. If this is what the metal curse produces, then perhaps we have been wrong to fear it." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, but Elder Taeho raised his hand for silence. "The ancient laws exist to protect us from corruption. If we abandon them for convenience..." With respect, honored elder, interrupted Dongsu. Taeho's own son. The ancient laws did not protect us from the Skardan raiders. Yuri and the human did. Hajin stepped forward, his universal translator converting his words for all to understand. I do not ask you to change your ways for my sake, but Yuri has shown courage and loyalty beyond measure. She deserves better than exile. You are an outsider, Elder Taeho replied stiffly. You do not understand our traditions. I understand that good people sometimes get punished for being different, Hajin said. I have seen it in my own species. Fear of change, fear of new ideas, fear of anything that challenges old ways of thinking. Bora stepped forward, still holding Da-un's hand. Elder Taeho, Yuri is my dearest friend. She saved my sister when our own warriors could not. If helping our people makes her cursed, then perhaps we need more cursed ones among us. The crowd buzzed with discussion as tribe members debated among themselves. Yuri could sense the electromagnetic patterns of their portable devices, the simple tools and weapons they carried without thinking. Her people were not as separate from technology as they liked to believe. I have a proposal, Yuri said, her voice carrying clearly across the gathering. I do not ask to return as I was. I know that bridge has been burned, but let me serve as a bridge between the old ways and the new world that surrounds us. What do you mean? Asked Hyojin. The galaxy is changing. Other species have weapons like the Skardan. Worse threats will come. You cannot hide from technology. Forever, but you also should not abandon everything that makes you Veltar. Yuri gestured toward Hajin's ship. I have learned that machines can be tools for good as well as evil. My abilities allow me to understand both worlds. Let me help our people adapt without losing who we are. Elder Taeho was quiet for a long moment, his ancient eyes studying the faces of his people. Finally, he spoke. And what of the human? Will he remain among us permanently? Hajin nodded. If you will have me. Yuri has shown me that some things are worth protecting even from strangers. I would like to help guard your people against future threats. The other elders must be consulted, Taeho said slowly. But the exile mark will be removed from your forehead, Yuri. You have earned at least that much. Yuri felt tears of relief flowing down her cheeks. Thank you, honored elder. Do not thank me yet, Taeho warned. The path you propose will not be easy. Change never is. Over the following days, the tribe made their decision. Yuri would not return to her old life, but she would be given a new role as cultural liaison and defense coordinator. She would work with Hajin to establish early warning systems against raiders while teaching young Veltar how to interact safely with beneficial technology. Hajin expanded his outpost into a permanent settlement, creating a buffer zone between the Veltar territory and the hostile frontier beyond. His advanced sensors and defensive systems provided protection, while his medical technology helped treat injuries and diseases that had claimed Veltar lives for generations. Most importantly, Yuri began training others who showed electromagnetic sensitivity. Instead of being exiled as cursed, these young Veltar learned to see their abilities as gifts that could protect their people. 3 months after her return, Yuri stood on the hillside overlooking both settlements. The Veltar village maintained its traditional appearance, but small technological improvements had made life easier and safer for everyone. Clean water systems, better communication devices, improved medical care, all introduced gradually and with respect for tribal customs. Hajin joined her on the hillside, carrying 2 cups of the spiced tea that had become his favorite Veltar beverage. Any regrets? He asked, as they watched children from both communities playing together in the valley below. Yuri touched the place on her forehead where the exile scar had been healed away by Hajin's medical technology. About being cast out. About meeting you. About the battles we fought. Hajin nodded. All of it. Yuri smiled, her electromagnetic senses picking up the peaceful patterns of two thriving communities. No regrets at all. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things we become. Wise words, Ha-Jin said. Very wise words. In the distance, a group of young Veltar were learning to operate the sensor equipment that would warn of approaching threats. Their teacher was a former exile who had found her true purpose in protecting others. The curse had become